Welcome to the Rocks and Oceans podcast, where you'll learn all about living in healthy masculine and feminine balance. We're your hosts, Jamel Harris and Alex Golden. And we made all the relationship mistakes before, so you don't have to.
Fun, connection, abundance, and a whole lot of sexy time will become your daily reality when you choose to step into an aligned way of knowing yourself. No worries if you feel salty and cynical from heartbreak. That's often the most powerful starting point for transformation. Welcome, and we're about to have so much fun together.
What's up? How you doing?
Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast.
I know, right? Was it episode 6?
It sure is.
All right. So we wanted to talk to y'all today about, we were just sitting around talking and we was like, man, what can we talk about? And we want you guys to send us topics and stuff that y'all want to hear about. We want to definitely be bringing you information that you want to hear. So if y'all could do that for us, that would be awesome. But what we want to talk about today is why don't the kids seem like they want to get married or even be in a relationship, right? Because it seems like they just date and have multiple partners and they go out and have fun. And this is just from me seeing social media. So I don't know. I'm not out there like that, but I have a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old, and they're not in relationships. I would say they have relationships or situationships is what they call them now. And so I'm just wondering what's going on out there, and we wanted to talk about that today. And so, yeah,
It's all over the place. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a whole slew of parents and sort of like the Generation X, the millennials, and maybe some boomers, but probably not as much, fall into the category. They're like, the kids these days, are not doing what we historically have done. Like there's just a switching over when it comes to relationships. And it seems to be concerning to a lot of people, right? Like what's going to happen when there is a continued wave and a continued movement towards like fewer relationships, fewer long-term things. And the conversation on marriage has come forward. And it's probably a good time because, I mean, divorce is like, we kind of joke about it, but it's like going around, right? Like the post-COVID wave, and it seems to be going more and more. And there's a lot of very happy adults in that process too. Like, as in, you and I feel really fulfilled and happy with the decisions we made after ours, right? Like, really, it was the right thing. Everything has gone well afterwards. Like, it wasn't as scary as we thought. All that kind of panned out. But then what are the consequences, and maybe are some unforeseen ones that are going to take place? But also I think we're seeing some now with what's going on social media, and it is a bit of a dumpster fire.
it sure is. And for me, I'll just say I like being in a relationship. Like I like having a female to snuggle up with and go to the movies with, and it's just certain things that you can do with someone of the opposite sex that you can't do with the same sex. In our case, we're heterosexual, so we understand there's all different kind of relationships out there, but we're addressing masculine and feminine in a male and female relationship. So we understand there's different types, but as far as me, I just like women.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Sexy and beautiful and
and I think
smell
that is
good, and I just like it.
Yeah, it seems to be that's kind of part of the problem, right? Like I think there's a lot of women, and not just women, but and maybe it's just my circle of the internet, but there seems to be a lot of people asking these days, like, do men really like women? Do women really like men? Are we actually acting as such? And I think that's essentially when we were talking about this, and there's no shortage of topics that we can think of because the things going on in relationship now are kind of wild. But when we thought about it, it was like this overwhelming sense of, as previous generations, the marketing that we did for marriage and long-term relationships was really pretty garbage.
Well, we came from the school where we had to market ourselves. I think that could be one of the challenges. back when I grew up, we said conversation ruled the nation. Like, meaning if you could hold a conversation, you could get the girl. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I see today is a lot of times we're online playing games. We do online dating, and so you don't necessarily have to have a quote unquote game like we used to have. Like, you got to have some game to walk up to a chick face
Yeah,
to
just
face
talk.
and just. I mean, you gotta have some balls and some game. You can't just,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know what
You
I
can
mean?
walk up and mess it up.
Just to walk up to a girl and say, "Hey, what's up? How you doing? What's your
Yeah.
name?" Or whatever you say. And so we grew up in that world where, me and my boys, we be like, "Hey, man, I bet you won't go talk to her," and we like, "I
Yeah.
bet I will," and he's like, "I bet you won't go talk to her then." And so we grew up where we actually conversed in person. Like, you had a
Yeah.
conversation, and
And you
so
said your parents and family around you would like take you to your little girlfriend's house down the street, like as in they were hyping it up. They were the
absolutely.
whole time like, even how old were you then?
Man, I had my first girlfriend that I can remember was in the second grade.
Yeah.
Nikki Wynn. I remember Nikki Wynn. I don't know where
Hello,
Nikki
Nikki.
Wynn is, but I
Yeah.
don't even remember what Nikki Wynn looks like, but I know she was my girlfriend,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
And
I think
so,
that the little I had a little boyfriend like that too. Um, no, I can't remember the name.
yeah.
But anyways, so but yeah, I think that that's the problem is sort of like our previous generations were showcasing to us like this was normal to hear when you get married, when you have kids, like that was the starting out of the sentences. And now I think in a lot of ways what happened was that our generations went, well, gosh, I wish we hadn't gotten pushed to marriage so hard, right? Like we swung the pendulum all the way back to the other side. And we all said, like, I went through the same thing with my parents. They were like, you should get married, you should have kids, you're a female, you will have children, your momming will be your primary role in life. You know, I heard all of that. And then from that, and I think a lot of us did, and we grew up and we're like, you know, you can be anybody you want to be. Like, you don't necessarily have to be a, child producing machine when you get grown up, or you don't necessarily have to get married, or you don't necessarily have to marry a Russian guy or a guy at all, or whatever. Like, as we've relaxed those things, I think the pendulum has naturally swung where people are like, let me honestly share a lot of the mistakes that I made and the things where, like, the missteps, like when I talk to my younger sister, and I have shared like, oh gosh, I really like decided early who I was going to marry. And, I didn't give myself a whole lot of time. Like, she's had all those discussions with me, but that's certainly not what I heard from my folks. And that's awesome and stuff like that. But I think that so often I kind of hear from people, and I'm sure I have done it too, especially as I was salty through divorce, where I was not just sharing my experience from a place of like, how can I teach from this and role model well? I was just like spewing stuff out my mouth. Right. I just was like, like I was too early. I didn't know what I was doing. This was a bad idea, all that sorts of stuff. And I have to kind of take responsibility for that image, because whatever was created from those words, I did that and I played a role in that. Now, I wasn't the only voice in our year, so I don't know exactly how it all shook out.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say that like we are all then, if that's true for me, then we're all playing those roles, right? And like, is there a way that we could speak that showed people what's possible and like a positive lens of marriage and relationships while still not lying, right?
Yeah. I wonder. Is it when I was younger? It was more about family, right? I
Yeah.
remember we had family reunions. You would go to your aunt so and so's house. You go. This is your cousin so and so. It was more about a family unit, and so I wonder, is just society's different now? Like, you have so many different people that when I grew up, it was usually a mom and my grandpa and grandma were married. Like, as far as when I grew up, pretty much most folks' grandparents were married.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of a community and home, and and things like that. And so I wonder, it's just as society has changed, like it became more single parent homes. And so I wonder, did we lose the family ideal, like the ideal of a family? Like you mentioned earlier, my mom, I can remember her taking me to one of my other little girlfriend's house when I was a kid, and like her saying, "That's your girlfriend." Like they were encouraging that because maybe they were we were expected to set up a family and have a
Yeah, it
family
was like the
in the traditional
trial.
sense,
It
if that
was your
makes sense.
trial subscription to adulthood. Like you did all the same little things that an adult did, just your little version.
Absolutely.
And it's true because we kind of I think where it used to be was that it was always based on the externals. Like you'd marry or you find a family unit or you'd stay in the unit that's like you. Right? So you stay with your family, but even in the family dynamics, so many people are beginning to no longer follow the model of just because that's your family, you have to be around them. There's been a whole wave of people being like, I am not like my family, and this is not a good setup, but I am happy to value family in a different setting. Like, can I find my own tribe of people? And I think that's part of what has happened that led to kind of the decrease in the focus on family. Because it's hard to tell everyone, like, when they have a crappy family, like it'd be like family's everything because on some level you understand that's not who you're talking to. But can we still be like, you don't have to do anything, like you don't have to get married, but what's going to be your tribe? Or you don't have to stay with this family, but who's going to be your family? For those of us who care, I guess it becomes like, can we or should we step forward as the leaders then, fully knowing that there's going to be other adults out there that are leading in the don't get married, don't, like, there's just so many more options there, and we have to decide what's going to be my thing that I stand for, right? Like for us, it's very clear we are for long-term relationships and marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting because I grew up wanting a family, and I wonder, was that just because I was in church so much, and you hear, you're supposed to get married before you have sex. So I think a lot of us, I mean, we was like, shoot, we want to get married so we can have sex.
Yeah.
And so, and that's shallow, but you know what I mean? Like it was really frowned upon to have sex before marriage. And so I don't know if just because of that upbringing, a lot of folks got into relationships that they necessarily didn't like just because of religion, or maybe your upbringing, or maybe your family is like, no, you're getting, I mean, I know I got married, you know, we were just expected to get married, just transparent. We weren't married. And then we had our second kid. My folks was like, you getting married. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's the right thing to do. I was in the church. And so we got married because that was the quote unquote right thing to do. So I wonder how many people go into marriage with that mindset. And it's not that we didn't love each other. We did love each other. But we went in it with the mindset of, we got these kids, we need to create this family, that's the right thing to do. And so I wonder how many times do people go into a relationship that way,
Yeah. It's like
and
an
trying to make it
obligation.
work because of what has already happened, and maybe that's not the right relationship. I mean, I'm sure it works in a lot of cases, but I feel like in a lot of cases it also doesn't work. And so how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I do feel like however, like the red flags that people miss up front is the reason that you break up, is kind of like a quote that I've heard. And that's so true. I mean, usually those things that you up front were like, oh, I can deal with that, is, towards the end, you see a zoomed out, it's kind of like a flight leaving. If you're like 2 degrees off, you end up being like 700 miles, off your destination or whatever. It's that same concept of like, I think that does happen. And it's true. I think that there was this sort of like, what's the right thing to do? Like how I heard from my parents, like love wasn't going to be the cornerstone of marriage. It was choosing the values and then just doing that. There was nothing to it. And it does seem like it's just a big old swing. We're like, okay, let's not do that. Let's tell everybody not to do it, and how real that was and all this stuff. But I do think there's probably a time, and hopefully it's coming soon, where we bring it back, where we toe that line of both. Like, how do we instill and prioritize the good values while still not lying to people and being inauthentic. Like, do our kids deserve to hear about like the real truth of what happens? Absolutely. But does it have to paint a picture that is like long-term morbidity, like they're like how people use words like, oh, I need to ask my ball and chain, like the old lady. All the words often are used to imply like obligation or something like a duty that you owe, but it's not generally like, it's way less common, and people take note of it if an older couple is like, oh, let me ask the love of my life. Doesn't everyone like record stop, and they're like, oh, tell us about how long you've been together, and everyone finds it so cute, and like everyone's doing the little cute smile and stuff to themselves. Like everyone finds that shit delightful, like they just do. But and there's a reason for it, because I think we don't even, it's so normalized to speak negatively and just 54% of marriages fail anyways. And it's like, why would the kids be motivated these days coming up with day after day of that, week after week, month after month? Why are they excited to go look for someone awesome? Would you even, from that setup, would you even believe that there's awesome people out there?
Especially when you hear your parents saying that, like, you know what I mean?
That's
just saying
like the
negative
law
things
when you're
about
a
marriage.
kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's who's giving you the blueprint. And so if the dad is saying mom gets on my nerves, dad gets on my nerves, and to a kid, their parents are everything. Like
Yeah,
they're Superman
this
and
is how
Superwoman,
marriage works.
right? And
Yeah.
so we end up, and it just goes back to communication, like we talked in earlier episodes. That couple probably don't need to be together. But because of what society says, you have these kids, you should stay together. And we traumatizing these kids over time because they're seeing the wrong version of marriage. And that's why we brought this topic today. Like, why don't they want to get married? Because they've seen so many fucked up marriages. Yeah. They're like, I don't want to do that shit. Like,
everyone's always
y'all
complaining
shit
about
all the time.
it.
Like, why the hell would I want to do
Then they get divorced and you're arguing about the child support, whether you should pay it, that kind of stuff. You're like dealing with.
And some parents, unfortunately, tell the kids what's going on. Like, they don't keep it between the adults.
Right. And then the other person obviously has to, talk about it. Like, there's just a lot of things that when we are behaving, it's true. Like, the adults really are like, I get to behave however I want because, I followed societal obligations before and it didn't pan out for me. Cool, but we still have the responsibility to lead the new generations because they're looking to us for the narratives. And they did some cool studies on this. I'll bring in just a smidge of nerdiness if I may, but they did.
Bring it in the nerdiness. Come on, nerd. She's my favorite nerd, by the way.
Thanks. I'm glad. Thank you. I don't have my glasses on, but I'll still nerd it up. Well, they did studies on brain chemistry for parents and kids, and they essentially just wanted to see how much do we, quote unquote, pass along even our brain wiring, like how you see the world. And as a consequence, the things that you think don't just happen for free, so to speak. Every time you have a thought, and especially if you share that thought, your whole brain is wiring itself with those beliefs. And so every time you say a thing, it is just hardwiring that in. And if you said something a lot, now it becomes just how you see the world. And so they tested the end result of that, which is the brain chemistry. Every time someone thought, then if you tested those numbers, it would give you a certain look of it. Then they took their kid and ran their lab testing, and they generally found that parents and kids, the parents pass along their thinking, right? In the fact that the parents are everything, the kid has the natural inclination to be like, anything they say is the real version. That's what's real in the world. And so that becomes their template. So just like at 22 and 20, they're just getting the opportunity to even consider other things. Like, and really, since the brain is still kind of getting all developed till 25, there are notable considerations for when kids are young, A, what they're hearing, but two, any decisions they make. Essentially, most decisions that they make then are not based in free will. It's always either they're doing what they saw that they like their parents do, or some reaction to it's the opposite. Oh, I'm going to do this then. Right. But none of that is really free will unless you have had the chance to work on yourself and actually come up with anything else and change your mind and rewire and all of that. So I think that's why the adults carry such a big responsibility of like, it matters what we say. It matters for a long time too.
I think saying things like, don't trust men.
Oh my God.
Don't trust women. When you generalize something
females
like that.
Females are sneaky.
Yeah, females cheat.
And honestly, just like saying females or males. And right, if you would say, oh, us women, and then you're going to turn around going, well, those males always, it's the same as verbally depersonalizing something, right? You're like, oh, those lions over there. Right? You're just sort of saying, or that table over there, it's not a human anymore. They're not men, they're males. And the same thing is true for like the females, like the little red pill community going off, right? It's like, you're not hunting.
Absolutely.
So, speak in a way that reflects what you would want your loved one to. If your son is a man to you, then don't call males males. Mm-hmm. Or vice versa.
Bella don't be calling them hoes, these hoes out here, right?
These bitches.
You gotta change your language. Yeah. Because they take on that languaging and they see it through that filter, but you gave them that filter. Just like the same filter is there to say there's a lot of good women out there, there's a lot of good men out there. It just depends on you. Is the cup half full or is it half empty?
And then if they expect to, let's say, okay, all the young women are acting like hoes now, right? That's a statement that I've heard people make. Okay, well, if you think everyone is a hoe, where are you going to go to meet women? The easiest place that you can possibly think of, right? Probably is like you're going to go to a bar and go, exactly. You're going to go to a club, you're going to go to a bar, you're going to whatever.
Now, we're not saying you hoes if you're in the bar, all right? We're not.
No,
saying
we like bars. It's cool. Like, yeah, it's all good.
Some reformed hoes in the bar.
Just one. But the sorry, you got me off track. But if
where are you looking for your people
you're looking for people, and and I've heard a lot of adults being like, well, why does my son or why do my daughter always go to XYZ to meet people? That's not even where they are. That's not even the main question. The main question is what do they think of people enough to determine where to go? Because if you don't think anyone's actually a good girl right now, because your parents said everyone's a hoe right now, then why would you go to church or join a church group or join a self-development program or, a divorce parenting group to meet people you don't believe anyone's there to find? Why go there?
Your paradigm says they don't even exist.
Right. So you won't take action on something that doesn't exist, probably. I mean, maybe you will, but email us if you do. But it's a really good, you won't do the things that align you with the people that you're looking for. And it's the same thing in the kids. If they're like, yeah, a situationship is all we can have, why would they take a relationship course? Why would they learn to be a good partner? Mm-hmm. There's no incentivization for that because someone else got there and implied it's not even worth your time.
And we talked a little bit about where you won't find them, but let's talk about where you probably can find them. Like, for instance, the old saying, I grew up in the country, they say you lay down with the dogs, you're going to get fleas. So wherever you're going, there's a certain type of person there. Like for me, I have a business. It's just certain things I don't do, right? And it's the same thing in dating and looking for women. It's a certain place. If I'm looking for a woman, like when I was divorced and I was out and about, when I was on my have fun tip, I was out there and like going to the clubs and all that. But I didn't find you at the club.
Fair enough.
I met you at a self-improvement program. And in my mind, that's a difference for me. Now, am I saying, because I was out there in the clubs, I'm not saying they're all bad people in the club and at the bar. That's not what we're saying. What I'm saying is the person that you're looking for is going to have certain traits.
Right.
And so if you get in that relationship, you met them in the club, and then all of a sudden you want them to stop going to the club, well, you met them in the club.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Unless you met well, yeah, I mean, and it probably happens at the time. They probably want to convert the person they met at the club over is one version.
Making a conversion.
The other thing, the person at the club wants to be converted and your brain can't even hear them. Because if you went to the club being like, well, all women are hoes, so I'll go to the club, she might be really awesome. It might be a great girl that doesn't normally go to the club. She was at a bachelorette party, whatever. Right. Yeah, she's out. It's not like I haven't been to a club, like even though that's not where you met me. But had I met you there, had you not been willing to see that in me, then we would have been toast, not because of me, but because of you, you know, in that scenario. Now that's a fake scenario. But like, that's what I mean is the setup's far more dangerous than what you actually do, it seems like, on that. But yeah, anyway, sorry, not to hijack the where to meet them.
Well, I mean, it's still a good point what you're saying. Like, you just have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people's problem. They don't even know what they're looking for. So I knew I was already professional. I had a business. I knew me personally, this is me, I had to have another person that had a business. Why? I travel at weird times. Like we'll go to Mexico or something from Monday to Thursday, or, you know, Wednesday to Sunday. I may go to a conference or something midweek. So I need someone that kind of has that kind of schedule. That's what I was looking for. What people do a lot of times, oftentimes they get somebody that has a job and they have a business. They're like, well, why can't you take off? And the other person's like, well, why are you working so much? And it's a mismatch, right? So number one, you got to know what you're looking for. So going back to where do you find people? When I met Alex, I was dating, but I still knew what I was looking for because I had a list and I was like, I want to be smart, sexy, intelligent. She can hold a conversation. Remember, conversation rules the nation. We can have a good time. She's flexible. Like she can be bougie, but at the same time, I'm country. She can be country and
dive bar it up.
You know what I'm saying? Dive bar it up. It don't got to always be bougie, you know, swanky, but at the same time, she know how to get bougie at the same time. So I had this list of what I was looking for. And when we met in a self-improvement program. We didn't meet in the program. We met in the Facebook group after the program. So I was already divorced and stuff like that. And we've told the story before, but people would meet around different cities in the United States. Like they'd be like, oh, we're in Portland. If you're in Portland, that's where she used to live. Hey, come by. We're at this, you know, restaurant, and we're at this place. Then I saw her in Dallas one weekend. I was like, oh, she's in Dallas. And again, she was cute. I didn't know her. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know what she did. I didn't know anything. I just knew she was in the same program I was in. One of the things you want to look for is someone that has commonality with you. So being that she was in that program, I felt like, okay, she's trying to grow herself. I'm trying to grow myself. This is
right.
Good.
I mean, it's a pretty fair indication if someone's in something like that. I mean, you have to pay thousands of dollars to invest in yourself to end up in something like that, right? We had both paid, what was it, $3,500 or something like that, or $4,000, something like that. So, as in, just to be in there, there's someone that either has money or figures out how to get money when they need it and want it, right? So that was going to be a characteristic. They're focusing on self-development. They're not scared to take responsibility or accountability or look at what they're doing wrong. They're not afraid to go through transformation. They're not scared to learn new stuff as adults. You know, there's so many characteristics of a person that has nothing to do with like the superficial. How much money exactly do they make? How tall are they? How much do they weigh? What do they look? I mean, and in your list, notably, it had sexy on there, but you didn't put like, I think women more oftentimes have criteria like this, but it's like a very clear external looks list. And that's fine if, especially if you are like very specific in your manifesting preferences, that can work. But for the most part, I haven't seen that. There's a reason why you think all that is required for you to love them and to feel loved. And so for the most part, I think that's where it goes a long way to have a list, but then have that where are you going to be flexible on? I don't look like your usual style. I think just from every indication I've got, like, I'm a little on the skinny side and things, but like, if you had weeded me out based on that, then I don't know that we would be here. But you kind of like, you knew what you wanted of me, but not that I had to look a certain way. Like, I still don't even feel like I've had extensions. Now I have short hair. Like, you've dyed it for me. Like, I feel like my body could go through a number of transformations and you would still love me, because it never felt like your list was dependent on that external stuff for me. So I get to just like live my life and be who I am and not go by anything,
That's true. Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to be attracted to the person you're with. I mean, but for me, the intelligence, the being able to have a business conversation, to understand the ups and downs of business, those were things that was important to me, because I wasn't changing. Like, that's part of masculinity, is I knew where I was going and where I wanted to go, and I wasn't quite there yet. So whoever was going to join me, they had to be okay with that path. And typically, birds of a feather flock together. Like, we were in the coaching program. Well, we did coaching calls in the middle of the day at 1 o'clock or something weird, but it was middle of the day, and the stuff we would have to do was weird. So we got initiated. We felt like that coaching program, it had us working on ourselves. So I knew, because of the work I had did on myself, she had done similar work if she did the homework. I don't know if she did the homework. Did you do the homework?
I did it 4 times.
Oh, perfect. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I knew she was working on herself and I was working on myself. She was attractive. And when we met up, we just had a conversation and we just never stopped talking. It was fascinating. Like, the stuff we talk about on the podcast, we just couldn't stop talking about relationships, about life, about God, about, I don't even know what all we talked about. And we still talk like that today.
It had accounted for my spirituality. Like, I have, my spirituality is one of the more diverse looks. Like, I can do the Christian look. I can talk about manifestation, like, as in, I accept a lot of different ideas and like utilize them and really feel like I benefit from them. And in that group, part of what was accounted for was that there was a lot of acceptance of different ideas like that. So I didn't know exactly how you thought or anything until we talked. But I knew that you must have had some flexibility of thought when it comes to like, how does this world work? Which is something I think about all the time, right? And my businesses, and we talk about that all the time. So I couldn't be with someone that wasn't talking about that kind of stuff. And I think all this stuff matters, tracking back to the conversation having of why don't the kids want to get married, is because when you choose stuff like this, that's what you'll share. You don't have to think about your words because you're in like an artificially good place. You can just be like, what I think about relationships, if I improve the way I see it and I work on these aspects, that's the exact same formula to improving the conversation with my kids and all the kids around me. I mean, you might not personally have kids, but maybe you teach online and you might have young adults scrolling through your stuff. What are they seeing from you? Is it making them want to love each other more or no?
True story.
Yeah.
And that's what this podcast is about, is we want to show a loving relationship. Yeah. We want to talk about a good relationship. Now, are there ups and downs? Abso-fucking-lutely. But we want to do the podcast because we feel like we do a good job of, we do get into it, but we get right back on track.
Right.
And that comes from self-improvement. I mean, man, this is such a good topic. We could talk about it all day, because when you self-improve, you create space for the other person's viewpoint.
Yeah.
But if you're just about self and you're just thinking about you, if I would have met Alex just thinking she has to be a Christian, she has to be baptized and born again, which is the stuff that I grew up believing, we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Right.
But because I was self-improving, I was reading a lot of different stuff, my mind was expanding, I was growing. So I was able to have space for the things that she was telling me about her background and her religion, and not judge her for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes a long way in a relationship, is just respecting the other person for who they are. Like for me, I didn't know anything about Russia or anything like that. I just knew she treated me well. And we had fun when we were together. And so I looked past, are we the same and stuff like that, because we made an episode earlier. Are we really that different, or are we the same? And what you'll find is, if you'll step outside of your paradigm and the way you think and start to look at the other person's perspective. I was coaching the guy yesterday, and that's what he said. He said, man, my perspective changed, because we just get stuck in our perspective. We don't think about the other person's perspective. And so there's a lot of people out there that want to be in relationships, but they don't know where to go. They don't know where to turn to. And like we're saying today, is there's self-improvement. The library may be a good place. Now, this doesn't mean, is it bad people in the library and then self-improvement programs? Yes,
Absolutely.
but what we're saying is success leaves clues. Meaning there's going to be clues that this person is trending in the way that you want to trend, aka we're in the same business program. We're like, I like to exercise. She likes to exercise. So there's just things that you're looking for in that future partner where you're compatible and you could do things together. If you get with somebody and they like, I can't stand Christianity. Well, you probably, even though she's sexy and telling all, that's a big value that you're probably going to clash on. And so it's more, to me, being in a relationship is more about looking for things that we have in common than we have different.
It's true. And I think with that setup of our thinking, not like, I mean, yeah, our setup does work as in like we're happy. But I think in terms of how we think about it, then sets up an environment where, generally speaking, if you come to our house and watch us interact, you don't see any evidence of the negativity bleeding through. Like, so one way that this shows up can be really, really insidious. And I learned this concept from, it was actually a parenting book. It's called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, How to Listen So Kids Will Talk. I may have flipped those too, but that's the title. And they have in the chapter about roles, they kind of verbally describe an example of just how much parents can share with a kid how they see the kid. Right. So let's say, I think the example was like building a puzzle. A kid that's considered like the good kid of the family comes up and the parents are like, hey, sweetie, you want to help us with the puzzle? The bad, quote unquote, bad troublemaker kid that breaks a lot of stuff comes up. They're like, careful, we're building a puzzle. Don't touch anything. Like, let us know if you want to move a piece. Like, we'll help you. They're like, in the wording, you cannot say, you're like, I never said anything bad about them. I didn't call them a troublemaker or anything. But all of those things sent a huge verbal message of, we see you as a problem. You're going to break something. You're going to touch something. You're going to do something. You're going to mess something up. That's how we see you. And just me saying stuff like that, that sends the message. In some ways, it's even worse than just a mean statement. Because with mean statements, people know you're not supposed to be mean, and they're like, oh, they were in a bad mood. But that repetitive, low-level, persistent way of just, verbally talking down to someone matters. And then, but I think we can utilize that. But how does that cross over in relationships? When you come to our house, you don't see those behaviors subtly show up. There's not eye rolls toward each other. When one of us messes up something, the other person's not like, that long dramatic like
or
sigh.
if you do, I'm like, what's up, babe?
Yeah, true. Yeah, you
You
might,
all right?
and I might be like, you know what, the thing, this interaction made me annoyed. I totally actually understand. Just give me a minute. So then they see that, right? And or whatever. So there's not the persistent like dragging out of um you have to piece together this puzzle piece of what we're actually thinking. I think in a lot of ways that feels very dangerous. Like it feels not like a safe place to be in if you don't really know if you can trust the people there, right? So the whole time it sort of psychologically breeds that feeling of what's really happening here, and is what I think happening here really happening here? Then you go into the world. Is it so confusing on why kids these days are pulling all the shit that they're doing to each other, the cheating stuff and the like not caring and the situationships and all this stuff? And I think adults are looking going, that's crazy, but I actually do think they set that up. And I'm including that in me. We set that up.
Absolutely. I mean, they were watching us.
They sure were.
We're the
They
models.
sure were. And at the time, I really, my focus truly was on getting me out of like the situations where I need to be in. And I just want to say that because I think a lot of us are in that. It's not from a malicious place that we're doing it. It's just because like, we're trying to do things the opposite of how we felt like our parents messed it up or previous generations. So now we're going to fix it. And that's all I was thinking. And that's okay. Like, we don't have to be hard on ourselves that it happened. But we can also be like, since we don't have to be hard on ourselves, we can just say, well, I could admit I fucked up then. And let's just, how do we move forward with this? How do we make sure that moving forward we are role modeling like the real version of relationships as you believe it? Your partner may have actually pissed you off that day, but when you come out of your bedroom, what will the kids see non-verbally and verbally?
Because there are great relationships out there,
They really are.
right? And so what we want to do, particularly with this podcast, is put that information out there. Because even if you're in a relationship right now, you can turn it around. This ain't about, we're talking about the kids,
Absolutely.
but if you're in a relationship right now, it can be turned around.
Yeah.
You just have to date and, you have to do the things that you did when you first got together.
Yeah.
That's the mistake that I've learned over these years that a lot of people make is you stop doing the stuff that got you in the relationship. You used to go to the movies together. You used to go on a walk on a nature trail together. You used to, I don't know, go out to eat on the weekends.
I used to think that the things that they did was positive. Like if they messed up, you just wouldn't assume that they did it out of maliciousness. Back in the beginning of the relationship, there's this positivity bias. Like they probably didn't mean to forget. Not what 20 years in, we know it turns into, oh, they always do this. They never listened to me. They must have been blah, X, Y, Z. And it's like you're painting in this picture. So it's like, yes, all those things are recoverable.
It's giving the partner the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, why fight with your partner? If you really think about it, why would I fight with my partner about the dishes?
It's really true. They're just
like, this
dishes.
is my partner. Like, how long would it take to do that? 5, 10, 15 minutes max. You could put your AirPods on, listen to a book on how to get better, self-improvement.
Yeah.
And that would be actually a blessing to your partner.
Right. Yeah, it's like treating them. I think it's looking at relationships that doesn't doesn't veer off into set it and forget it. Because I think that's what ends up happening. And so people just lose sight of what they're saying.
Take each other for granted.
Yeah, and what they're like bitching about and stuff. But I think when you look at it with this is a fresh relationship every day, and I'm sort of keeping my energy on that. Yeah, that's right. Then I think you don't fall into necessarily those kind of behaviors. Or if you do for a little bit, it's easier to get them back on because it's like the normal for our relationship is that it's good. And I've been in other relationship where the normal was that being kind of off with each other was the norm, and having a good moment, we'd be like, hey, look, we're having a great moment here. And then when it was a bad moment, we'd say that too. But the norm was not loving, kind, affectionate, sexy time, like all that stuff. And even if it's not, can we still showcase for everybody more of that? Because like what we're saying is your own brain will be happier if you're choosing to stay in the relationship. Why not make it as good as possible while you're in it? If you're planning on leaving, fine, right? You can do that next time. But it's like if you're going to be in it, the best bet for you is to talk about it and see it positively and choose to see the best in that person and all that. So if you're going to do it for you, you can also just know. And maybe sometimes it's more motivating to do something for other people than ourselves. And if that's you, you're like me, and I invite you to coaching because that can be worked on, and there's some definite benefits to working on that. But if it motivates you to be like, for my kids, I'll do it, I think it's worth it because it helps your own brain be happier in the relationship you're in. So why wouldn't you want to do it?
Are you over there saying it's better to give than to receive?
I am.
How dare you?
I know. Yeah, and if you're giving and giving and giving and they keep taking and taking and taking, then that's what you just said. Like listen to yourself and look at the reality of what you just said and then decide what you want to do with that. You might not decide today, but you'll decide eventually. But I think this is how we've gotten to this conversation so often. The I'll see like a TikTok or a reel and they'll say, well, you want to communicate with your partner and you can say X, Y, Z. And then there's a whole bunch of people in the comments going, well, I try communicating with my partner and they don't care. Well, what do you think anybody's response is going to be? If your foot is in a bear trap and it's hurting you, what do you think people want you to do or are going to recommend that you do? It's like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that if you're going around blasting your problems and then just continue to sit there, that no one, including your own brain, takes you seriously on that. Right? So you are better off just decide if you're going to stay, make it good.
Absolutely.
Heck, I haven't told my own dad this.
Yeah. We have to role model what we want because what's happening right now is they're role modeling what they seen us doing.
Yeah.
I can't stand your daddy. I can't stand your mama. And you fill in the blank, whatever phrases you heard in your house that were not conducive to a good relationship. We heard them whether they were in our home or we went over to somebody else's house. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day. He was telling me some of the stuff he used to hear. He used to work at a salon, and he was telling me about some of the stuff he used to hear the women say about their husbands, and they create a thought process for him. And I was like, wow, man. And we just don't realize where we pick up our belief systems at. Mm-hmm. Wherever you're going to a bunch, you're creating them thought processes. So if you're hanging around a lot of people that are negative about relationships, we want to challenge you to go find people that have the type of relationships that you want. Yeah. And don't just find them, but ask them questions, model their behavior. Hey, what did you do? You married 50 years and y'all seem happy. I want to challenge you to go find people that have great relationships because you can have one.
Absolutely. That's such a great point, which, by the way, TikTok, follow us at Rocks and Oceans Podcast, all one word, no spaces or anything, because actually what we have found is that it is not always super easy to find those kind of couples. That's why the kids are acting that way, right? Most of the couples you come alongside are more like making it, or they're just sort of like trudging along, and it's okay. We talk to a lot of people every single day because of our businesses. Most of the people we come across, whether, we're not starting to talk about relationships all the time from the get-go, but almost always they pop in with it, don't they? And it's because they're having problems. And if you are finding it difficult, then that's why we have this whole internet thing. Like now we're using it for dating apps to like go hurt each other and cheat and whatever, all that. Let's use it for positive. You can come, if you don't have anybody in your actual circle to speak positively, come hang out on our TikTok, comment, ask us questions, send us DMs. Like we want to hear from you, but just because they're not in person doesn't mean there's no one to hang out with. It's not an excuse to say, I don't know anybody. You know two people right here, so come hang. And that's what I had my business partner, Megan. I met her on Instagram. right? That we just bumped each other often enough. And then I said, hey, you want to hop on the phone? And we did. And so just because it's social media doesn't mean it can't turn into something really meaningful. We have a 12-year relationship at this point, you know? And so that's what it really looks like to say, I care about this more than I care about this whole narrative. Just because other people are on the bullshit, I'm not going to be led that way because I'm not someone that engages in that stuff. Like, do what you're most proud of. And if you have to hodgepodge it until the real people in your personal circle get there, awesome. That works too. And oftentimes I think that is how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, good. You got anything else?
No, I would definitely invite you to come check us out, TikTok and then YouTube. You can find us over there. The videos are going to be added to there as well shortly. And so check that out. You can also talk to Jamel and you can send us an email. The links are all in the show notes. So if you listen to this and you're like, I am not feeling super great about what I have done in the past in terms of that role modeling, or maybe you've been on the receiving end and you're younger and you're listening and going, ooh, what I heard was not great. Either way, just reach out to us or go in the show notes. You can schedule a call with Jay to meet with him one-on-one, and you can have a very specific conversation and have the help that you need. So we're always here for you. Check that out.
All right. Thanks for coming, guys. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Rocks and Oceans podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend that could use this information. Please also subscribe and leave us a review so that more people can find this work. You can also find us over at YouTube and TikTok at Rocks and Oceans Podcast. Let's build a happier and more powerful world together.